The parsha begins with the mitzvah Porah Duma, the red heifer, as it's referred to. So what's the red heifer? So the red heifer is a calf that's never worked, and it's at least 3 years old, and it's purely red, and it is slaughtered outside Jerusalem, facing, but the one who slaughters it has to be facing and seeing the entrance to the Beis HaMikdash, to the Heichal, to the sanctuary. And then it's cast into a conflagration of fire. Then it's mixed, the ashes are mixed with water that's in a vessel that's drawn from a spring. And then there's a hyssop mixed into it. And the hyssop is tied with a red crimson thread. It's a most mysterious commandment. And then the mei chatat, as it's called, these waters of purification. So they are sprinkled on the 3rd and 7th day of a Jew who wishes to undergo purification after having been in contact with the most, in one sense, the most severe form of impurity, death, either being under the same canopy or touching in an open area, touching a dead body, renders one Tomei for 7 days for Shiva, and that would disqualify someone from entering the Beis HaMikdash or partaking of sacrificial food, meat that the animal to be offered on the altar, and in many cases, part of the meat is eaten by the one who brought it. He cannot eat it if he's in a state of impurity, or if he's a kohen, he cannot eat those special designated contributions that the Israeli agricultural farmer Jew would give him. He must eat it in a state of purity. And if he became impure to this degree, the kohen too, like everybody else, would undergo this 7-day purification process. So the Torah says, Zois chukas ha-Torah, which simply means this is the law of the Torah. The whole Torah, we do not find any other law that is described as being the law of all of Judaism. Why is this the law of all of Judaism is the basic question. Now, one level answer, we're going to go deeper, God willing, we'll have time now. The Alter Rebbe in his famous book, Likutei Torah, says like this. All of mitzvahs, overall, the intent is the service of God, of course. Now, what's the service of God? It involves 2 opposite movements. Friends, truth always comes in paradox or in opposite tensions. In the words of the prophet, Rotzui and Shuv, the prophet is describing the heavens, and he describes the angelic the movements of the angels, and they're moving because of what we do. That's what propels them in their dynamic. And he sees them going out and returning. Ascending and returning, ascending and returning. What is that? How does this translate in simple language for you and I? What does it mean? It's the whole point. A Jew has to be at once. At once. His desire must be transcendence, disengaging the world, the limitations of his body, of his animal soul, certainly his Yetzer Hara, a desire to become one with the divine. That's that direction. And at the same time, Shuv is a divine mission to engage the world, the body, etc. So Porah, now some mitzvahs are exclusively Rotzui. They're transcendent mitzvahs, like the mitzvah to fast Yom Kippur altogether is transcendence. We're angelic. We don't eat, drink, don't engage in the family life, husband and wife. And then there's Shabbos, mitzvah to eat, family, community, engagement, and other contrasting mitzvahs. Porah Duma is both. It's one mitzvah, level 1 to our answer, because it's both. It's both this Rotzei and Shuv in a very powerful way. How? On the one hand, as I just told you, it's entirely burned. Now fire ascends. And how is fire created? By the consumption of the fuel. So that's consuming, overcoming the resistance of the self, of the ego, the world, and ascending on high. Like the flame seeks to tear itself away from the wick and merge with its source above. There is a source above. That's one hand. The other hand, I mean, just as we just mentioned at the outset, the Parah Adumah, the ashes have to be placed in a vessel filled with water. Vessel means containment. Water is the opposite of fire. It descends, it saturates. Fire consumes, water fills. The opposite. Gevura chesed. Furthermore, so again, we see the two opposites. So since Parah Adumah has these two opposite movements factored into its very observance, that's why it is called the law of the entire Torah. Because all mitzvahs in totality are these two movements, transcendence and engagement. But the Rebbe asks, beautiful, but on the other hand, Parah Adumah is the exception of the entire Torah. How can it represent all of the Torah? Why? It's the only mitzvah that utterly defies logic. How so? In general, there are 4 mitzvahs that are called chukim, which means a decree that defy logic. But of the 4, Parah Adumah, as I will now share with you, defies logic utterly. What are the classic 4? The first one is the mitzvah of Yibum. What's Yibum? The law is, on the one hand, a person may not marry his brother's wife if he divorces her, or even if he dies, forever. But what happens if a fellow dies childless? Then the brother has to marry. So how is something that's utterly forbidden now becomes a mitzvah? So that's a question, this contradiction. When we say things defy logic because they're self-contradictory. So that's one. Yibum. Second one is shatnez. It's forbidden to wear woolen linen, but in tzitzis you can have woolen linen. So how is it? In tzitzis you can, but otherwise you can't. And the kohen can wear woolen linen while engaged in the service only. So contradiction. That's number 2. What do we say? Yibum, and now shatnez, that's 2. Third is the he-goat, the Sodeh Mishtaleach, that is cast off the cliff. And Yom Kippur, you know, one of the services in Yom Kippur is to draw a lottery between 2 identical goats. One's bought as a korban, one's cast off the cliff. So where is it representing the casting away of sin, rejection of sin? But the contradiction is, it brings atonement, but the ones involved in casting it off become ritually impure. Become tamei, they have to purify themselves. It brings atonement and yet defilement. But the real chayk is Parah Adumah. Because Parah Adumah, the red heifer, brings purity and defilement at the same time. The he-goat brings atonement. Now we can understand a little bit why, because if you're casting off sins, you're getting your hands dirty as you do it. So it becomes defiled. But Parah Adumah, the law is that people engaged in preparing it become ritually impure, and yet you're creating something that is the most purifying agency. That's the contradiction that utterly defies logic. And furthermore, it's the only korban that is prepared. Every other sacrifice, and this is called, the waters at the end are called the mechatas. The word chatas is a term used to describe offerings, highest order, sin offerings that bring atonement. They all have to be prepared in the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash. In fact, the sin offering in the northern part, close to the sanctuary. This has to be prepared outside Jerusalem, and yet it's the most holy. And so these are the inherent contradictions, purity and impurity, not just atonement and impurity, but impurity and purity. So the Rebbe is asking, how then is this the law of the entire Torah? King Solomon said he understood all mitzvahs, all of these 4 he addressed, understood their reasons, but Parah Adumah remained elusive. Only Moishe Rabbeinu Hashem revealed the reason, as it were. So the question is, how is this the law of the entire Torah? The opposite. It's the exception to the entire Torah. That's the question. So the answer will begin, friends, is as follows. The word used and employed by the Torah here to describe a law that defies logic is Chukat. As you know, mitzvahs are divided in three categories. The Chacham at the Manishtan identifies the three categories: Eidos, Chukim, Mishpatim. Without going to the Chacham by the order that he places them, just the three categories classically are Chukim, Eidos, Mishpatim. Chukim defy logic. Eidos, testimonial commandments, which are such that logic doesn't say you have to do them. You can live without Shabbos. But once commanded, we understand the reason. It recalls creation. They have rested as all kinds of immediate virtues. Pesach, all holidays, mezuzah, tefillin, they're all edus, all bear testimony, remind us of important truths and events in our past or in terms of obligations. It just remind us of all of the mitzvahs. That's edus. And then there's mishpatim, logical laws that even if Torah wouldn't have been given, we'd have to, societies would have to abide by them, whether they disintegrate overnight, not to kill, not to steal, basic respect of basic morality. It's got to be some level of boundaries and borders, or again, a society couldn't survive. So that's mishpat. So what are we saying? That paraduma within chukim is the absolute chayk, utterly defies all logic. And we're asking, how does that represent all of Judaism? Eidos and mishpatim included, everything. When they're logical, supremely or logical, after we're commanded, we appreciate why. They bear witness, they bear testimony. So how is this the foundation of all of that? So to understand this, friends, we're going to explore the following. We're going to talk about three levels of the divine, which parallels three levels in our own souls. We're made in the image of God by divine design, because God wants a relationship with us. And you can't have a relationship with something you don't share in common. The more you share in common with someone, the deeper the relationship. The more you're in that person's world and they're in your world, that's the deepening of the relationship. So it's very hard to have a relationship with a stone. You don't share too much with a stone. A plant, a little more, it grows. An animal, even more. A dolphin, a dog, intelligent. And a human being, even more. And your spouse, the ultimate. So God wants a relationship with us, therefore, and we're finite human beings with all of these components, 613 parts and 10, which 613 components to our physical and psychological and spiritual makeup, which all come down to basically 10 components. 6 and 1 and 3 is 10. The 10 attributes. So God manifests himself with these attributes and more because of relationship with us. So now we're going to describe three levels within the divine within us. From the bottom up. To make it simple, the bottom up. The bottom up, means the most manifested, external, the obvious dimensions that you encounter when you encounter someone or even appreciate your own self. Number one is intelligence. I think, therefore I am. But we live in our heads. That's the first thing. Their minds. That's one level. Intelligence. And that then leads to emotion and behavior and all kinds of things. It all starts with consciousness. We're talking about the human being now. Probe deeper within consciousness. There's a deeper level than intelligence. And that is the will to survive. The will to survive, which will then influence my intelligence. I mean, if I'm going to get this job and do this, and it influences. But really, what's behind my understanding, my appreciation, my analysis, the faculties of rationale, of analysis, etc. What drives all of that is I want to be successful. I want to live. That's the second level. It's a transcendent level. It's transcendent because I'm not conscious of it all. You don't wake up in the morning, I want to live, I want to be successful. It's the foundation. It's what's driving everything. It only comes to the fore when you're threatened. When life is threatened, then that will, the survival, or your family is threatened. That's when the survival will assert itself. There's many levels to will, but we're getting to the simplest core, raw level of will. So there's I want, higher than I understand. I just explore that a bit further. Understanding by definition means I'm understanding something outside of me. That's what understanding means. I'm entertaining. I'm thinking about something that's not there, and I'm thinking about it. So by definition, intelligence is inquiry about something that's outside of me. Will is already, I want to survive. It's not about a reaction to anything else. And there's a third level. Not I want, I am. I am. That's the core essence. It says I am, I want, I understand, and the rest I feel, I do. That's all details in conscious behavior. Clear? Now, paralleling this is the following. Before we talk about God. So started saying the Torah uses the word in describing. Everybody's following me so far. If there's any questions, just stop me. Yeah, good. Okay. David Malka, Shalom Aleichem. You're in Montreal? I see blue
Yes,
sky.
sir. I'm in Montreal. Yeah.
What's that?
Yes, in Montreal.
Yeah. Okay. Good to see you.
Well, part of Montreal. I'm in Côte Saint Luc. I'm in Côte Saint Luc. It's part of Montreal.
Yeah. So there's one sky that envelops us all.
Yeah, but there's only one underpass to get here. So
yeah. Even the world is one. Safna Darachadu. It's one world. Wherever you stand, you're understanding the same place as everybody else.
correct.
And certainly embraced by the sky, which is makif, the rotzen. That's the rotzen. Okay, so continuing. So we're saying that the Torah describes the law that utterly transcends. It's beyond, not just beyond, but beyond, is the paradum. It's called a chayk. Now the word chayk, here's now the key to understanding everything. The word chayk means to engrave. To engrave. Chakika means to engrave. So now, there's three levels of communication of letters. Letters communicate. They say something. There's letters, ink on a paper, where the letters are foreign and imposed on the parchment or the paper. Two separate things. Then there's letters which are engraved within a precious stone, but not through and through, but engraved. And then there are letters, and this is unique to the Ten Commandments, engraved through and through, which means, as the Gemara points out, that there's a constant miracle here, a constant impossibility, because the letter Mem and Samach, friends, right? They're closed. So what happens if you engrave that? The middle falls out. So the middle of the Mem and the Samach, Benes HaYomdim, was suspended constantly in the Aseret Adibras, in the tablets of stone, because that's engraved through and through. And moreover, when you engrave something, so the letters, you read it on one side. If you turn it around, it's backwards. But no, the Ten Commandments, from whichever side you looked at it, you could read it. Which it's absolutely impossible even to conceive. Can't conceive that. Simultaneously, you cannot. You can think of, I can see it now. Turn it around, I can see it now. But now try and conceive that you're seeing both. It's like the Holy of Holies, where the Ark was there but took up no space.
So how do we? What's the difference? What's the difference between that and the parachet that it was the same on both sides? It wasn't reversed.
That's it. Similar. But here is the engraving that's suspended. That's this chiddush here. This piece that belongs nowhere, suspended in the letters. But it's similar. So what does this mean? So letters, Torah is all letters. It's all letters on parchment. So letters is God's will. God's saying, I want you to put on tefillin. It's commanding us, put on tefillin, keep Shabbos. So there's 3 levels to these commandments, these words. What's God telling us? What is this? What are mitzvahs? There are mitzvahs as they are on the Sefer Torah scroll, as we're all familiar with, letters on parchment. There are mitzvahs that are engraved letters, but not through and through, which means where it's engraved, you can still fill it up with something. You could put something in there and fill it and lose the letter. And then there's letters that are engraved through and through, and you can't fill it. And it's integral to the stone itself. So let's translate this. What are we saying? Level 1, what's Judaism? Judaism is the most beautiful, moral, spiritual way to live. To use Kabbalistic language, it's God's communication. It's Atzilus talking to us. What's Atzilus? Atzilus is God has manifested Chachma and Bina and Das, all these glorious, beautiful attributes. Wisdom, intelligence, and emotion at the most profound and pure and beautiful. That's what a Jewish life is. What's Torah? The wisest way to live, emotionally the most fulfilling, the most beautiful. It's beautiful. That's one level of Judaism. And it stood the test of time. It makes the most sense. You don't have to be a big scientist or some kind of social scientist. Just look, those who keep Shabbos, those who keep mikveh, what it does for marriage, what it does for family. As the old expression goes, more than the Jews keep Shabbos. Shabbos kept the Jews on a very simple level. Today we have to appreciate what this means. Today there's no phone. Today you talk to each other, you see each other. Community, family, husband, wife, children. Once upon a time, it was a matter of who needs Shabbos. Today, it's how can you live without Shabbos? Just one example. To start every day with davening, with a meditation, it's a beautiful way to live. You want healthy children, respectful children. Follow the guidelines in the code of Jewish law. It's a recipe for success. Your business is the recipe for a business that doesn't consume you, that you're the master of it. Tzedakah, it just elevates it. It's so meaningful, beautiful. That's one level. That's akin to letters written on the parchment. We're already at 7 o'clock. We'll have to continue next week. Okay? So we're going to go 3 levels of what Judaism is. Letters on a parchment, letters engraved in the precious stone, but not through and through, and letters through and through. Then we'll understand what paradum is, and we'll understand at the end how that has to affect every aspect of our lives and what this incredible message is. Be'ez Hashem, God willing, next week. To run to daven. Shabbat shalom, good Shabbos, good to see everybody.